Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chirani Kingpati Nasanti Dishanti Bhiksham.
Chirani Kingpati Nasanti Dishanti Bhiksham.
Naivang Gripah Parabrita Saritopya Shushyan.
Naivang Gripah Parabrita Saritopya Shushyan.
Rudha Guha Kimajito Vatino Pasannan.
Rudha Guha Kimajito Vatino Pasannan.
Kasmad Bhajanti Kaveyo Dhanadur Madandhan.
Kasmad Bhajanti Kaveyo Dhanadur Madandhan.
Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? Do the rivers, being dried up, no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed, or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? Purport. The renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others as a parasite. According to the dictionary, a parasite is a sycophant who lives at the cost of society without making any contribution to that society. The renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to society and not depending on the earnings of the householders. On the contrary, acceptance of alms from the householders by the bona fide mendicant is an opportunity afforded by the saint for the tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatan Dharma institution, alms giving to the mendicant is part of a householder's duty, and it is advised in the scriptures that the householders should treat the mendicants as their family children and should provide them with food, clothing, etc., without being asked. Pseudo-mendicants therefore should not take advantage of the charitable disposition of the faithful householders. The first duty of a person in the renounced order of life is to contribute some literary work for the benefit of the human being in order to give him realized direction toward self-realization. Amongst the other duties in the renounced order of life of Srila Sanatan, Srila Rupa and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan, the foremost duty discharged by them was to hold learned discourses amongst themselves at Seva Kunj, Vrindavan, the spot where Sri Radha Damodar temple was established by Srila Jiva Goswami, and where the actual Samadhi tombs of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami are laid. For the benefit of all in human society, they left behind them immense literatures of transcendental importance. Similarly, all the acharyas who voluntarily accepted the renounced order of life aimed at benefiting human society and not at living a comfortable or irresponsible life at the cost of others. However, those who cannot give any contribution should not go to the householders for food, for such mendicants asking bread from the householders are an insult to the highest order. Shukdev Goswami gave this warning especially for those mendicants who adopt this line of profession to solve their economic problems. Such mendicants are in abundance in the age of Kali. When a man becomes a mendicant willfully or by circumstances, he must be of firm faith and conviction that the Supreme Lord is the maintainer of all living beings everywhere in the universe. Why then would he neglect the maintenance of a surrendered soul who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord. A common master looks to the necessities of his servant. So, how much more would the all-powerful, all-opulent Supreme Lord look after the necessities of life for a fully surrendered soul? The general rule is that a mendicant devotee will accept a simple small loincloth without asking anyone to give it in charity. He simply salvages it from the rejected torn cloth thrown in the street. When he is hungry, he may go to a magnanimous tree which drops fruits, and when he is thirsty, he may drink water from the flowing river. He does not require to live in a comfortable house, but should find a cave in the hills and not be afraid of jungle animals, keeping faith in God who lives in everyone's heart. The Lord may dictate to tigers and other jungle animals not to disturb his devotee. Haridas Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya, used to live in such a cave, and by chance a great venomous snake was a co-partner of the cave. Some admirer of Thakur Haridas, who had to visit their Thakur every day, feared the snake and suggested that the Thakur leave that place. Because his devotees were afraid of the snake and they were regularly visiting the cave, Thakur Haridas agreed to the proposal on their account. But as soon as this was settled, the snake actually crawled out of its hole in the cave and left the cave for good before everyone present. By the dictation of the Lord, who lived also within the heart of the snake gave preference to Haridas and decided to leave the place and not disturb him. So this is a tangible example of how the Lord gives protection to a bona fide devotee like Thakur Haridas. According to the regulations of the Sanatana Dharma institution, one is trained from the beginning to depend fully on the protection of the Lord in all circumstances. The path of renunciation is recommended for acceptance by one who is fully accomplished and fully purified in his existence. This stage is described also in the Bhagavad-gita as Daivi Sampat. A human being is required to accumulate Daivi Sampat, or spiritual assets. Otherwise, the next alternative, Asuri Sampat, or material assets, will overcome him disproportionately, and thus one will be forced into the entanglement of different miseries of the material world. A sannyasi should always live alone without company, and he must be fearless. He should never be afraid of living alone, although he is never alone. The Lord is residing in everyone's heart, and unless one is purified by the prescribed process, one will feel that he is alone. But a man in the renounced order of life must be purified by the process. Thus, he will feel the presence of the Lord everywhere, and will have nothing to fear, such as being without any company. Everyone can become a fearless and honest person if his very existence is purified by discharging the prescribed duty for each and every order of life. One can become fixed in one's prescribed duty by faithful oral reception of Vedic instructions and assimilation of the essence of Vedic knowledge by devotional service to the Lord. Previous to this verse, Shukadeva Swami spoke, when there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering on the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? It appears to be an extreme standard of renunciation. Shukadeva Goswami was even on, from the point of view of renunciation, even more extreme standard, because he says, well, you can take the barks of trees and wear that, but he didn't even wear that himself, so he's even more renounced. This we sometimes see. The valkala, that means the bark of a tree, that's often mentioned as being suitable for clothing for rishis. doesn't sound like it's very comfortable, but it covers the body. So it appears to be a very high level of renunciation. Another thing you can take, another possibility is that there's some thrown out clothes. You can just pick them off the road and eat them. And you can take fruit from the tree, water from the river. You can, for shelter from the sun and the rain and the cold, you can live in a cave. So why should anyone live such a life? Tasmad bhajanti kavayo dhana durmadantha. One can live such a life when one is fully dependent on Krishna and not wanting to flatter persons who are blinded by the madness of wealth. This is the life of a renunciate. A renunciate, he rejects the standards of materialistic society. In materialistic society, there's a loose kind of cooperation in which everyone is cooperating to help each other with material facilities so that they can enjoy sense gratification. A renunciate is not interested in sense gratification. A renunciate is interested in satisfying Krishna. The path of satisfying Krishna and the path of satisfying the public, they are different paths. So a renunciate, he renounces human society. He leaves home and wanders here and there and begs. But he should not only renounce the means of enjoying sense gratification or acquiring objects for sense gratification, but he should renounce the very desire for sense gratification. In other words, by working as a householder, one can get all the facilities required for sense gratification, and by wandering as a mendicant without working, one can also enjoy them. Or by staying in one place, one can accept all the facilities and live very comfortably. But one should be free from such desires and only accept enough food to maintain the body and soul together so that one can serve Krishna. And even if there's not enough, then all right, tomorrow you may take some more, that's all. Rather than becoming dependent, this is the point. He's dependent upon Krishna, whatever Krishna sends. If Krishna sends food, I'll take it. If he doesn't send, then I won't take, that's all. Whatever facilities Krishna gives, we can accept. But not to become dependent upon materialistic people, because when we accept something from someone, we become obliged to them. So if we accept things from materialistic people, then they expect something materialistic back from us. So therefore, a renunciate, either he totally avoids human society, as is suggested here. Don't go even for food or water or a place to sleep, nothing. Just avoid totally the materialistic society. Whatever fruit is there on the tree, eat it. Whatever water is in the river, drink it. Lie on the ground. Don't use a pillow. Just use your arms. Or otherwise the renunciate can practice madhukari, in which they take very little from each household, and this way they don't become indebted to them. There's also a system that you can only go to 7 houses for madhukari, and that you can only take a very small amount from each one. So if someone doesn't give, or there's no one there, or no one's there or something, then you just have less, that's all. So this system is there so that one remains independent of human society and completely dependent upon the mercy of Krishna. Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke. Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. I was just thinking of this verse. Krishna, if Krishna wants to protect, then who can kill? And if Krishna wants to kill you, who can protect you? I was just thinking of this because yesterday there was this discussion of this theory that Prabhupada was poisoned, but it's an atheistic theory to think that a pure devotee can be poisoned and killed. That means he's not under the protection of Krishna. That you can kill him like you can kill some materialistic person. So it's a completely mundane perception of the pure devotee that he's not under Krishna's protection, and that you can interfere with you can interfere with his activities to the extent that you can kill him. You cannot. They didn't read Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, he was fed poison, but it didn't have any effect because Krishna didn't want that it would have the effect. If pure devotees come by the will of Krishna and they leave, they do everything according to Krishna's direction. You can't poison them. I mean, you could give poison, but that doesn't mean that it would have effect. So anyway, the pure devotees, they are fully dependent on Krishna, and they practice this by not interacting with human society in a materialistic way. They only interact with others in a manner that others may be benefited spiritually. They're not durmadandhan, dhana durmadandhan. They're not blinded by wealth, which is particularly prominent in modern society. People are blinded by wealth. They're very much concerned to get lots of money. But a devotee sees, what is the value of this? Or this prestige, even our temples, they like to show this VIP visitor, that VIP visitor. It's all right, but then we have to see how they visited, but are they becoming Krishna conscious? It's not just a kind of, like in the newspapers they show all the celebrities going to parties, and it's a fashion at the top of society to be photoed photoed going to some opening of some new shop or something like this, to be a celebrity. So the celebrity in the temple is Krishna, and if these people come, it's for their benefit, but it's not that it's our goal of life to bring these ignorant, foolish people of the material world and increase our own prestige by being identified with these very ignorant people. We can say VIP. VIP means very ignorant person. Everyone in this material world is ignorant, but they're thinking that they're very important. That means they're very ignorant, more ignorant than others. So a devotee, he remains aloof. He sees, what is this material life? I don't have anything to do with this. We depend on Krishna. Krishna will protect us in all respects. We'd rather live a life that the materialist would consider miserable. We'll voluntarily accept discomfort rather than accept the comfort which is the intoxication of the materialists. That we think that the whole life is meant for organizing everything so that we can live very comfortably. But rather we should understand that material life is not comfortable. So why try to make it comfortable when it's not comfortable? Rather, whatever Krishna sends, we can accept that in his service and not make any endeavor for comfort, prestige, and all this kind of thing. So this is the mood of complete dependence. I was just thinking about this because you were telling me there are all these arrangements now that for brahmacharis to have, what is it called, social security. Next they'll have it, in London a few years ago I saw that they had that something written that every temple resident devotee has to do at least 40 hours of service a week. Now why 40 hours? It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. Why only 40 hours? It means, alright, time is given for resting, but that's also part of service. We only rest so that we get enough energy to go on with our service. It's always. I already did my 40 hours, so get out. Why are you talking about that? Did my 40 hours, leave me alone. That's not brahmachari life at all. Brahmachari life means to be Vasandanto Guru Hitam, Dasaran Acharan Nicho. One should live in the Gurukul under the control of the Guru and be a menial servant. So security means we depend on Krishna. That's what we're trying to cultivate, not on any man-made schemes which might very well collapse anyway because they make some pension scheme or something 40 years later, who knows, all over the world now, in Japan, in America, all the pension schemes are going to collapse because there's more old people than young people, and the young people, they have to pay so much of their taxes because the money they put in for the pension, the government already spent it long ago. So there's no money to give them all their pensions. So it has to come out of the young people's tax money, and they won't want to do it. So the answer is euthanasia. Kill them all. It's coming. So for your pension, you might get a lethal injection. Your social security means, oh, you're 60 years old, you can't do any work. Okay, just come here, sir. Don't worry, it won't hurt very much. So, better to depend on Krishna. I remember in my brahmachari days, people were saying, what about your future, your security? And it's just, you should make some arrangement for your security. I should, what is this madness? Better I don't. Who will look after you in old age? Better no one looks after you. You just rot, you let your body rot away in the dust of Vrindavan and go back to Godhead. If there's someone looking after you, that's another kind. That can be another kind of maya, thinking who's going to look after me. Better just depend on Krishna fully. Now it's presumed that I'm a sannyasi and someone might look after me. I don't know. You never know. You can't tell. Someone might not. I remember seeing it. The Acharya at Sri Chaitanya Math, one of the bigger Gauriya Math institutions, in his old age, he had so many disciples. He was senile, and one of his disciples, he was drooling like this, and the disciple brahmachari is supposed to look at him and say, "What are you doing? Wake up! It's making such a big mess!" Just completely horrible. So better not. If that's the kind of looking after you're going to have, then better. Of course, when you're senile, you don't know what's going on, I presume. Do you know? You have any idea of senility? Do they know what's going on? They have any idea of what's going on? Depends on the degree of senility or what? Senile means they're pretty far gone, isn't it? They're like out of touch with the world. I've seen, it's not the only case. I saw in Remuna also one senile old sadhu. So it can happen to sadhus also. I mean, that was Shraman Maharaj. He was as far as I know, he was a lifelong brahmachari, but still somehow or other in his old age he became senile. So you never know what's going to happen. Better just depend on Krishna. Don't depend on... In this age, you know, even if you have disciples, you can't depend on them. You know, they might poison you. If you have lots of money, you save up your money so that you can become safe in your old age. But then if you keep money, then someone will poison you and take it all away. So better just to depend upon Krishna. That's the message that Shukadev Goswami is giving here. But it's a very difficult one, because we depend at the beginning here. Shukadev Goswami, this is the beginning of Shukadev Goswami's instruction. He started off with talking about the asat sainya, that people they depend upon they do in the daytime kutumba bharanena divacha teheya rajan kutumba bharanena va. They spend their daytime working to maintain their kutumba, their family members, and they think they will look after me, but they are asat sainya. They are fallible soldiers. They cannot, even if they try to, they cannot protect you. He's going on with this theme here, very, very harsh, cutting words from Shukadev Goswami. Don't be attached to that which cannot help you. Be attached to Krishna. It's very difficult for most people to even begin to imagine this. That's why for householders to give up if we tell, now you come out, you take sannyas, now you're old enough. The idea is you're supposed to enter family life. What for? For the purpose of coming out the other side after the age of 50. But to Krishna, it's very difficult for most people to even begin to imagine this. That's why for householders to give up if we tell, now you come out, you take sannyas, now you're old enough. The idea is you're supposed to enter family life. What for? For the purpose of coming out the other side after the age of 50. But mostly they don't do. Even their children are grown up, but some kind of attachment to comfort. Even in our ISKCON, we don't find many. Now there are plenty of older grihastas, but not many of them are coming out of the family situation and taking up the life of renunciation. Attachment is too strong, and that's also a major reason why brahmacharis they don't remain brahmacharis. It's not only gross sexual desire, but also the idea that I can make my own little nest and live comfortably, and there'll be someone to look after me. And funnily enough, they have the idea that they think they're becoming independent by becoming a grihasta. But actually you become more dependent. Brahmachari means he depends upon Krishna and Guru, and then especially in the modern world, grihasta means you become dependent upon some boss, that's all. Everyone's working for some boss. They may not even know the boss's name in a multinational corporation or what he looks like, but they're working for some boss. So everyone's dependent. But this is actual independence. Independence, there's no independence, but independence means to be independent of the demands of materialistic people and just depend upon Krishna. Whatever Krishna wants of me. This is the substratum of Krishna consciousness. Surrender, one of the, two of the principles, they're very similar principles. Rakshishititi vishvaso goptritve varanam tata. That full faith that Krishna will protect me and that Krishna will maintain me. Without that, there's no real advancement. We say, yes, you practice Krishna consciousness, live comfortably as a householder, but you should listen and hear this also. Otherwise, if you think you'll go on forever living comfortably in material life, it's a big illusion, because there is no comfort actually in material life. It's living very comfortably, and then you have to get born again and again. And if we are attached to living comfortably in this material world, then we have to take birth again and again. At some point, we have to surrender to Krishna. So many people, they tell us that, since my childhood I've been worshipping Ganesh or Shiva or someone or other, so it's very difficult to give up. So I'll just go on and worship them anyway, along with worshipping Krishna. All right, but you're going to remain in this material world. As long as we have material attachments, we have to take birth again to fulfill them. So when are you going to come to the point of sarvadhaman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja? As long as we don't come to that point, then you may say it's very difficult to give up. It may be difficult to give up, but then you have to take the difficulty of repeated birth and death. So many attachments. We have so many attachments. We're attached to Rakshasa style music. We like that, and so we make rock and roll bands for chanting Hare Krishna, only for preaching. So they say, it's for preaching. Maintaining material attachments. But the Bhagavatam, the Acharyas, they've taught us that what it means to become niskinchan, to be freed of material attachments. This Bhakti Thakur says, Kave Gaura Bane Shura Dhuni Tate Ha Radhe Ha Krishna Bane Nachiya Gaya Garai Boshu. What is it? How does he say? Magi Swapacha Grihete Magiya Kaya Pibo Saraswati Jo. I'll living in Navadvip Dham, I'll beg food in the houses of dog eaters. I never saw any dog eaters in Navadvip Dham. There might have been at that time, but anyway, the idea is drink the water of the Saraswati. So this idea of being completely independent, not becoming the servant, the slave of materialistic persons or materialistic ideas, to think that we have to incorporate materialistic ideas into bhakti, but then it's not bhakti, then it's mixed up. Bhakti means that which is pleasing to Krishna. The idea, this is Vairagya Vidya. Renunciation based on Vidya here meaning experience of Krishna. The ideal of this was Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. Sakshat Vairagya Murti. Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murti. He had this Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I was quoting this last time I came here. He would say, I approached my Guru Maharaj. Saraswati Thakur was famous as a scholar. He was a young man. He was famous as a scholar in an era when there was real scholarship in India, not this MSc, PhD nonsense, but there were so many real scholars. He was famous as being very moral, very cultured in his behavior. And he went to Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who seemed very rough, crude in comparison. And then Saraswati Thakur said that when I saw that he didn't care, he didn't give a damn about my aristocracy, my learning, my good behavior. He didn't care about it at all. He wasn't in the slightest bit impressed or interested in it. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when I saw that he had no interest in all these things which I considered very important, being very moral and very learned, very aristocratic. When I saw that he had no interest in, he wasn't impressed, then I had some idea of what kind of wealth did he have. That all these things which are considered like the highest level of human character, he just thought there's just no interest whatsoever. He wasn't in the slightest bit impressed by it. Then he thought, oh, what kind of wealth does he have that he's not interested in this? And he realized that his Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj's rejection of everything considered valuable in human society was because he had something far more valuable, which was his Vipralamba Rasambo De Padambu Jayate Namaha. He was absorbed in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, Vipralamba Bhav. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was the only disciple of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and he appeared to contradict everything that Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj stood for. Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj told him, don't go to Calcutta. He went to Calcutta. Don't mix with materialistic people. And then he used to call just like the governor of Bengal, Sir John Anderson, he called him to Mayapur. He's a British beefeater. They even arranged, because these British people, they're accustomed to eating meat 3 times a day. So when they came to Mayapur, they arranged also for a meat diet. That's so. Sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would dress in very aristocratic style. So it would appear that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had compromised the principles of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He even discussed it himself, that my Guru Maharaj told me not to associate with materialistic people. He said, I never associated with materialistic people, because association means to take something from others. I never took anything from others. So preaching means, Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was not a preacher. He only had one disciple. Preaching means to connect with materialistic people and bring them to Krishna. That means there has to be some kind of communication. And in the beginning, because we can't communicate with them on the purely spiritual platform, that means that we can't expect people will immediately become fully Krishna conscious. There has to be some kind of adjustment with their culture, their way of thinking. Not that we adjust ourselves internally, but we may, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, that we should dress a little bit better than the Karmi people. We should live in places better than theirs. We should be more learned. Then they'll listen to what we have to say. But then if we ourselves become enamored by these things, then we lost the whole point. If we think that the point of the Krishna conscious movement is building more and more buildings, and remembering, don't forget to put some statue in the corner and wave some incense at it from time to time. Or if we think that a PhD devotee is more important than an uneducated devotee, then it's not Krishna consciousness. It's a materialistic calculation. From one point of view, it may be more important that from a preaching point of view, it might be. From some perspective, it might be, but intrinsically, it doesn't. Actually, to be a PhD makes it more difficult to be a pure devotee, because you have all this nonsense in your head, extra nonsense, plus the pride of thinking I'm very learned. So that makes it's actually more difficult. So we should not be dependent upon Kami society, even though as preachers we have to interact with that, but we shouldn't accept their standards or subject ourselves to be judged by them according to their standards. It's nice if the non-devotees appreciate our movement, but they should appreciate it for what it is, not according to their ideas. If our movement is appreciated by non-devotees according to their standards, then we're in trouble. If they think we're good according to their standards, then we're in trouble. But if they can begin to appreciate that the actual value of Krishna consciousness, then our movement is beginning to be a success. So these verses are very valuable. We shouldn't think it's just something Shukadeva Goswami spoke and it doesn't have any relevance to the modern age, because in the modern age we're not living like that. We're building buildings and we're making facilities for devotees. No, these verses are more important when we're making facilities. The actual value of Krishna consciousness, then our movement is beginning to be a success. So these verses are very valuable. We shouldn't think it's just something Shukadeva Goswami spoke and it doesn't have any relevance to the modern age, because in the modern age we're not living like that. We're building buildings and we're making facilities for devotees. No, these verses are more important when we're making facilities, understanding that we don't depend on the facilities. We have to depend on Krishna. We're meant for serving Krishna. And don't depend on karmi people. We shouldn't flatter them. Don't flatter the non-devotees to get their money from them. Then we become their servant. We don't become the servant of Lakshmi Narayana. Depend upon Krishna. This is the message being given here. If we don't do that, if we start flattering materialistic people, then we, for the sake of taking their money, then gradually, instead of making them devotees, we become non-devotees like them. We become materialists, just like Prabhupada said here. The parasite, the sadhu who's a parasite, he flatters others and he takes money. And he lives very comfortably. So that's a kind of cheating. But some people, they like that. The sadhus will come and flatter them, and they give them money, and then they become the master of this. They think that the sadhu is, I have my dhobi, I have my baba, I have the cleaning woman and the cook, and I have my guru also. So he's part of the staff. Like that. Just like a family priest, something like that. Dependent. devotees should be fully dependent upon Krishna and independent of human society. That's the ideal. For preaching, some adjustment has to be made, but not so far that we lose our soul. For preaching, some facility is required. But we should always remember what the purpose is. That we're supposed to depend upon Krishna. And personally, we shouldn't sacrifice our principles for durmadandhan, for satisfying materialistic people. So these are important verses. This should be our life's motto. Smaran nityam anityatvam. Everything in this material world is temporary. What is this business of becoming, in the name of bhakti, becoming a big zamindar, something like this? We're servants only. Krishna can give, Krishna can take away, or we should always remember that we're the servant, only the servant. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, seeing his disciples fighting over the rooms in this big palatial temple, he was ready, okay, we can knock the whole building down and print books better. I don't think he ever considered, you never know with Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he was such a revolutionary personality, but he didn't do that actually, but he was feeling like that. The purpose of the temple is to increase bhakti, but we see that they've become attached to the building, so better we break down the building and we use the money to print books. That was his outlook. Hare Krishna. Any question about this?
It's right. Without consciously, though devotees go out and meet people and things like that, there's quite a lot of chances they get carried away by.
Yeah. It's quite possible that our devotees will get caught up like this. This is why Prabhupada in Bombay, devotees were going out for meeting people and making collection in the day. Prabhupada said they must come back in the evening and join in kirtan and join the evening program. Otherwise, he said, then we'll become another cheating organization. If we're just collecting and collecting and collecting, but what are we collecting for? So that we can practice and preach spiritual life. If we don't practice ourselves and we're just collecting, then we're just another set of cheaters, that's all. Then collecting becomes an aim in itself. That's why you have to be careful when we're collecting also. We don't just talk a bunch of nonsense. We should preach, give people books, think how they can be spiritually benefited. This Akshay Patra, so-called, first thing, if it's Akshay, then why do they have to go out and collect? That's the first thing. But they're going out and saying, oh, you'll help the children, they can get a better education. You're just talking nonsense. It's nothing to do with Krishna consciousness all day. And what will happen is that after some time you start to believe it. And, then the whole purpose of our movement is lost. We're helping the progress of the nation so they can have a better future with good education. They can all learn about Darwin's theory, and they go to school at the age of 8. They get taught about sex education, and then they get taught And then they get taught how to use contraceptives, and it's all going on in the schools, and then how to get a divorce. It's modern education. So, probably improving the nation by feeding the children so they can go to school, and totally mundane. What they say is totally mundane. Theoretically, they're distributing prasadam. So, that's it. It looks good. They collect a lot of money, and they build more projects, and they have more people going out and collecting for food distribution, and it becomes bigger and bigger. But what's the purpose? Asmad bhajanti kavi, and the people are giving, and they're thinking, yes, we're giving, we're doing very good work, we're helping to build the nation. That means they're building their factories, and they'll have a big pool of cheap technicians in future. There'll be a surplus of engineers, and there'll be no shortage of engineers for their more and more factories. So materialistic people, they love this. They think, oh, it's really wonderful.
Remember, there is one viewpoint that we should depend on Krishna for body maintenance. Rakhe Krishna Mare ki, Krishna wants to maintain, it's okay. But there is another viewpoint that it is Krishna's giving his body for serving him. So
Yeah.
it's a duty to maintain it.
Yeah, we should have a duty to maintain it. Yeah, of course. That doesn't mean that Rakhe Krishna Mareke doesn't mean that I shouldn't brush my teeth in the morning. You think Krishna's going to come and brush them? I'll just lie down and Krishna will come and put the toothbrush in my mouth. Some basic care should be there. But there's all complex schemes, that's not required.
The degree one devotee will depend on, like there are devotees, Ajagarvriti is also there.
Yeah.
And then there are, like we go to Bhiksha. So then there are different degrees of...
Bhiksha is not for filling your belly, it's for serving Krishna.
Yeah, means the body maintenance for body maintenance.
Bhiksha is not meant for bodily maintenance. That's a side issue. Bhiksha is for serving Krishna. Bhiksha is not meant for oneself. We're not going out and collecting for bodily maintenance. That's cheating if we are. We're going out and collecting, as Prabhupada says here, to give the people a chance to serve Krishna.
Like that Madhukari, only 7 houses.
Yeah.
So, like only 7 houses because just for body maintenance, that's much. Otherwise, we could go like whole day. Madhukari is made for this body maintenance. So,
Yeah, but we're not doing that. You're talking about going. What are you talking about?
Means there's some devotees who are making some endeavor. They are different level of endeavor. They are making for.
Yeah, that we see with Raghunath Das. That first of all he was taking his father's money.
Yeah.
Then he stopped taking that. Then he stood at the gate of the Jagannath temple. Then he stopped doing that. Then he went to the different shopkeepers. Then he stopped doing that. And then he took the rotten rice. Yeah, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated that renunciation. Madhavendra Puri would just take if someone gave him. So we should hear about this. We may not follow that, but we should exactly in detail in our own behavior, but this kind of mood we should have. Otherwise, you see, karmi people, they say that, well, I'm a self-made person. I do everything by my own effort. I don't depend on anyone. It's just the opposite mood of a devotee. You're wondering about how to apply this practically. Practically means we live simply, that's all. For Krishna we can collect crores of rupees, but we ourselves, we should not be interested in living in comfort. We might do, but that shouldn't be our aim and object. Just like Prabhupada, sometimes he'd be lodged in palatial quarters, and then other times he'd live in a little hut. So, we shouldn't be attached to that. Living very comfortably.
Prabhupada said both the things in the Bhagavad-gita. He said that one needs to work at least to maintain his body. Cannot sit quietly.
Well, that's Krishna himself says that.
Yes. Other place Prabhupada says one need not, automatically already it's been taken care of the body.
So different instructions are for different people, isn't it? Householders are supposed to do something. Those who have fully renounced, they may not do anything. And they don't get much either. If you work more, you get more. Generally speaking. But then you may become more attached also. So, it's not that every instruction in Bhagavad-gita is meant for everyone. There's karma, there's one section recommending demigod worship, and there's another section condemning it. So for someone who's not recognizing any higher authority, the beginning is demigod worship. Then when you come to higher understanding, that's condemned as foolishness. You have a question? You have a question?
When you're talking about protection of devotees, is there a story of Radhini Shakti?
Radhini Dasi, yeah.
So she gets shocked at the, and that's how she dies. She gets shocked. So then how do we understand this Krishna's protection?
Well, apparently there's a lot more to that story than is told in the popular legend. What was she doing in a country that was at civil war anyway? Anyway, that's another thing. But there is, like I say, anyway, as a general principle we could say that if Krishna wants you to go, then it's time. You should understand whatever Krishna ordains, we accept it as Krishna's mercy. In that particular case, there were extenuating factors, as the saying goes. There's more to the story than is told, actually. The hidden story. There may have been some other things that she had some reactions for, or Krishna wanted to remove her from some situation also. We have our ISKCON mythology also.